will be sent out and shared into the world. We'll kind of take a breath and a pause. The podcast recording part will be over, and then we'll have some time for Q&A. So if you are listening and you want to ask your own question, you're going to get a chance, or to follow up on something that you hear. But just know, if it's helpful, that your Q&A part will not be captured for the universe, which may give you a little bit more freedom and bravery, or just may be reassuring. Like I said, we'll get started in just a few minutes, and we'll aim to wrap up our facilitated conversation around 7, and then have 10, 15 minutes or so for Q&A. And then both of these lovely women have said that they'd be happy to greet folks, and if you want to get a book signed or something like that, they'll be here and available for that as well. And I think it's pretty close to 6:15, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Hi.
Hi.
This is lovely. Just to officially begin, so this will be kind of start the recording part. This is Dialogue, a podcast of the Lenten preaching series recorded live at Calvary Episcopal Church in Memphis. I'm Katherine Bush, the Associate Rector for Formation and Education here at Calvary, and tonight my guests are the Reverend Dr. Jacqui Lewis. She is an author, an activist, y'all start counting because there's a lot here, preacher, public theologian, who is working to create an anti-racist, just, gun violence-free, fully welcoming, gender-affirming society in which everyone has enough. Yes, please, and thank you.
Sounds good, right?
Yeah.
We should do that.
We should do that. Yeah. She's building this world through her own church ministry, national conferences, and public programming, and there are paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs of the initiatives and ministries. Somehow you have a day job. She is the senior minister and public theologian at Middle Church in New York City. She's been there for 20 years. And again, in her free time, she's the author of books and articles. Her most recent book is Fierce Love, which was published in 2021, which you can find outside at the table out there. And our other guest here is Cole Arthur Riley, a writer and a poet. She's the author of This Here Flesh, Spirituality, Liberation, and the Stories That Make Us. Cole is the creator and writer of Black Liturgies, a project that integrates spiritual practice with Black emotion, Black literature, and the Black body. And you can find this work on Instagram, and now in tactile form in Black Liturgies, prayers, poems, and meditations, also available tonight. And in both of these spaces, the virtual one and the tactile one, she weaves her prayers and words with the collected wisdom of Black writers, artists, and theologians. You will quickly discern that they are fans and friends of each other, so this will be fun. I'm a fan and a wannabe friend, so we're just going to have a great little chat tonight. So thank you both for being here. It is an honor and a privilege to welcome you into this space. We're just going to dive right in, yep. And then follow the tangents and the rabbit trails as they emerge. But one of the ways that we've been thinking and talking about the world in its beauty and its terror around here is through this metaphor of cloth and of weaving, and noticing the ways where things are torn and ripped, where things are unraveling, and then also looking for the places where we see mending and repair work. I'm not much for handiwork. I'm trying to pick up some unfinished pieces of my mother's, but one of the things that I'm aware of is the idea of visible mending, where when you have a tear or you need to repair a garment, that you use embroidery that's a colored thread that you can see. You don't hide the mending work. It's visible. So I would love to start there and to hear from each of you. Again, this might be in your smaller sphere or how you see things in the world, where you see things unraveling, where there are rips and shreds, and then where you also look and see mending and repair work happening. You can flip a
Would you
coin
like
to
to
see
go
who
first?
starts.
I would love for you to go first.
I know you would. If I take this question first, will you take the second one first?
Yes.
A promise? A pinky swear? Okay, good. All right. I just want to say as an opening comment, I'm fascinated by how much they pay for ripped jeans.
Right. Right.
There's something really fashionable about ripped and torn things. And I wonder if I'll bet if we wrote a liturgy about that, Cole, we'd get to what we're signifying when we wear clothes that are torn, because we're signifying something. Top of my heart right now is the shredding of decency and kindness, civility. I mean, before you get to democracy, before you get to powers and systems, there's just a shredding of kindness. And I'm so baffled by it. It's almost de rigueur to be mean. In the social spaces, online, and media. I'm 65 years old almost, and I feel like I remember when Democrats and Republicans knew how to talk to each other on the floor of a Senate. And I might be making that up, that might be TV, because I'm 65 years old. So also, I remember all of the underlying everythingness of the people standing in Congress talking about stuff together. I'm not a person saying there used to be good old days, because I've not really experienced good old days in this nation. But I do think we're at a peak of mean, that mean is fashionable. And I'm so sad about that. Because the conversations that we need to have are mission critical. The questions of identity, like who are we going to be as a human being species? Who are we going to be as a nation, as humans on the planet, period, global neighbors? I think we are on the precipice of something really catastrophic, and maybe we've even tipped over there. Like that's the first question, and maybe I should save catastrophe till later, but I'm not gonna, because Cole gets to go first next time. What in the world is going on? What in the world is going on? Where the micro conversation is mean, unkind, uncivil, stank is the word I would use, with each other, with no replication. I'm thinking about when he's talking and somebody screams out, "You lie!" You know, that's the new way to talk, to be. But on top of that, or maybe underneath that, what has unraveled is a sense that we need each other to survive, that humans are not going to make it if we don't make it together. And that's this philosophy of Ubuntu that I write and talk a lot about. So I'm disturbed. I'm very upset, if I'm honest, about Gaza. I'm very upset about Israel and Gaza. I'm very upset about Sudan and Congo and places we're not even talking about. I'm very upset about no drinking water in Detroit, and I'm very upset about how we can't fix that. And I'm very upset about the assault on trans people and assault on black and brown bodies and the assault on the earth. Those are very upsetting things that to me are part of this unraveling of our intention, like our design. I think we're designed to be loving. I do. I think we're designed to be kind. I think we're designed to get like, oh my God, there's a storm, let's go, let's put the sandbags up together, let's wade into the water. People waded into the fetid water in Louisiana when Katrina came. They waded in the water and got sick to get somebody else out. They climbed on top of roofs to save somebody. We know the baby's hungry, we're gonna take food over there, the grandmother's sick, we know how to do that, we know how to do that. And I feel like we've lost our way a bit on that.
You have thoughts about the unraveling and or where you might see people trying to braid things back together?
Yeah, I'm not prone to seeing the braiding back together. It's not my natural disposition. I'll try to think. I mean, what comes to mind when you ask the question of unraveling is, I mean, not unlike what your answer is. I think kindness certainly rises to the list. I don't think our digital morality has caught up with our like daily morality. The kindness that we're able to show at a grocery store, I don't think has necessarily translated. We haven't evolved in the sense as quickly as our technology has. But the thing that comes to mind is I think the unraveling that feels really pressing right now is our ability to know what's true and what's not. I think a sense of trust maybe is how I would put it. I think this feels like a time, I mean, I'm only 33, but at least in my lifetime, it feels like a time where it's very difficult to discern what is true and what isn't. And I don't have a lot of trust in the people who I voted for, the people who I would typically look to in government. I don't have a lot of trust in the truth that they are presenting me with. And I think younger and younger generations are feeling that sense of distrust or skepticism and who can I trust, and maybe along with that our kind of confidence in ourselves around our own intuition, our ability to discern that for ourselves, I think is certainly atrophying when you're online and trying to figure out, is this true, is this not? It's everything I think around truth is becoming a bit harder in this season.
That's so true. That's right. That's true.
So I would not have led with how old everybody is on stage, but just to say, since you both have you both have claimed your ages, and say as somebody who comes in the middle, one of the things that strikes me as listening to the two of you, and we were talking about this a little bit before we walked out, is the places and spaces that you each come from, right? So generationally, you represent different generations, right? Cole, you were raised in a family where according in what I read in This Your Flesh, a family where there was deep meaning and care for one another, but not a church family, right? And you were raised in a church family.
Yep.
So you have these kind of different, those create whole different worldviews, right? In terms of the time in which you came up and the way that your household kind of organized itself and sought and found connections and things like that. So I really appreciate the two of you bringing your disparate experiences into conversation. And then here we are in a church, right? Cole, you walked in and said, it's nice to be in a church, and to think about what church looks like and means, maybe in the spaces that are unraveling or untrustworthy, or maybe just in for a moment in their own sense of like, what is church like for each of you? And answer that how you will, as from the way you grew up or the way you are now.
It's my turn to go first.
You pinky swore, we all saw it.
Well, I think it's complicated for me. I'm not attending a church right now, and the pandemic, of course, part of that was practicality and wanting to stay alive. And for me, in my health, we are still there. We're still in a pandemic, and it's still quite a risk to me. So I've had to make different choices around church, and I think the distance from it has helped me to kind of become honest about the level of distrust I feel and the varying levels of safety I feel. And I think there was a time where maybe I would have kind of clung to weekly attendance as if that was some kind of buoy or something that was gonna save me. And I'm much more interested in kind of, I don't know, times where I'm connecting with my body as a form of church and communing with the divine, of breath practice, of actually getting up and walking when I can and have the strength to. And I found that those moments with myself and with my body have felt more illuminating and really necessary in this
Right.
time as a kind of connection to the sacred. Yeah.
I feel that. And I think I want to just go back and do a little premise check. I mean, Cole did not grow up in the church, but I think she's one of the most theologically rich writers of our time. I really do. And so, and I did grow up in the church, and I think I'm a pretty decent theological writer as well. So I think that I think God is everywhere, is what I'm trying to say. That we don't have to be in church to be theologically engaged, that in fact, all of us are. And so when Cole says, my body, my temple, that's this time with my body, paying attention to my body feels like safe and good church. I would say, yeah, me too. I think if it wasn't middle church in New York, I don't know that I would go to church either. And that maybe takes me to your where I see hope question that we didn't do, but like this community of, multi-ethnic, multi-racial, many-gendered, many-sexuality weirdos that go to middle church give me hope because they are also not so churchy, and also fumbling their way to God, like almost like, God, I want to be with you. And then what is God? Like love, peace. Our bodies as a temple. My mic is making sounds. Because my hair is weird. Is it bad? Is that better? So I'm trying to say, church for me is Howard Thurman might say, wherever
Yes.
Howard Thurman, wherever the people are doing the work of love. That's church. So in their streets, Black Lives Matter kiddos, Cole sitting in her house writing, so we can all have some liturgy, thanks be to God. You all feeding the people downstairs, that's church. Kiddos dancing is church, yoga studio church. Called in to do love, wherever that is.
Right. I think it helpful to say to name. Church doesn't own these.
Right.
Church doesn't own liturgy. Church doesn't own reconciliation. Church doesn't own a sacramental life. And so where are those? So the walk, when you're able, the breath, the work, the
dancing,
the giving, the dancing.
Yes.
To be able to identify and broaden that definition. And I don't know if there are others that you would add to the other places where you feel like you see like something that we might be tempted to say, again, church, however you experience it, doesn't have a monopoly on kindness, forgiveness, touch, right, care. And so to be able to find that certainly outside four walls, out in the world, feels very real. I don't know, there are other places that you would add, or other places where you see those things unfolding?
Every place, I think, with artists, that was another answer that came to mind. In art and poetry, I'm finding connection to the sacred, to the divine. And I think, when we think about the church not owning these things and not owning kindness, I appreciate that, because I think I've shifted from thinking, I used to think of church as, churches are going to save everyone, kind of. That was the idea, or how it had been presented to me. And now I feel very convinced that churches need to be saved just as much as the rest of us, and they are not owed any additional trust. They're certainly not owed.
Just by virtue of...
Right. And to kind of undo some of that expectation that the church should, the assumption of trust, the assumption of knowledge, or this kind of singular path to truth, the singular kind of mouthpiece for truth. I think the more I've dismantled that idea, the more, one, I'm able to love it again and understand it again, but also find the sacred in all of these other mechanisms.
Yeah.
I think that what I wish this morning, my sermon was, those of you who were here, I was telling the congregation that you are theologians in residence in your own life. So if you were up here, I'd wonder, if Rev asked you, where do you find the churchy thing? Or Where do you find God? Like, where do you find God? I'm sitting in the backyard writing a book, and I'm looking at the fish in the pond. And then you start noticing it's not just the fish. Oh, there's black fish and white fish and orange fish, and where do they come from? And then you're curious about that. And then you notice the tadpoles, and then you notice the flies. Like, that's all God. All of that stuff is God. Like, in the color purplish, God just wants to be loved. All of it belongs to the holy. And you too, right? You are brushing your teeth, and you are doing your toenails, or you are tending to your lover, or you are walking on a path, or you are baking bread. You are doing holy work when you're making love for your family, making love with your family. And if that were more integrated in our lives, Cole wouldn't have to fall out of love with that. If that were more integrated in our lives, when we come together like this, we'd be thinking, wow, look at all these love shacks right here. God is love, and those who live in love live in God, and God lives in them. You gather with other love shacks, and you make a love shack, baby. and all you're doing is like just loving on each other and loving on the world, and thinking, what's our politic of love? What's our liturgy of love? What's our joy together? What do we find distasteful together that we can throw love at it and make it better? And that's what justice is, right? It's love lived out loud. So I love my church. I don't love church because church, you know, took liberation texts out of the Bible and gave it to me and my ancestors, right? Church is scorning queer people. Why are we so upset with queer people? Calm down. You know, church is sometimes recycling traumatized texts to traumatize people into behavior. What is that about? Like, I'm like, God is probably going, y'all are so crazy. Calm down. Just calm down and love each other and see what we can do together with people who go to mosques to be love shacks, and people who go to synagogue to be love shacks, and people who go for walks to be love shacks. What do you think about that?
I love that.
I love that, right? Love shack, baby. Yeah.
So the refrain of love, right, that you just offered us, and a little bit of toe tap and B-52s too. To think about, so, and one of the things that you do, Jacqui, is you pair words. So fierce love, rule-breaking kindness, which I was sharing with you earlier, is one of my favorites, mainly because there's very little about me that feels comfortable breaking rules, and so it's just such an encouragement to pair these seemingly mismatched, but then to discover in the space between, you know, something new. So, and obviously the curation of words and the collecting of words and the putting together to create, you know, to stop the scroll and to create a moment, to stop the kind of quick, I know what love is. No, when you add this adjective, it changes what love means. So both of you, in terms of your work, kind of creating the pause to redefine words that have become trite or overused. So if there are either to talk to us a little bit about some of your pairings of fierce love, or to think about how those words become spaces or stop us from overusing them too easily, if that makes sense. I don't know if there's a question in there or not, or just want to talk about words some and language.
I'm going to go first quick so I can pass to this brilliance right here. So I love words. Mom and Dad gave me a love for words, and I like the funky tension of how you don't think it's this, but it's this, and I love doing that kind of exegetical work that gets us there. Rule-breaking kindness. I actually enjoy breaking rules, and I think the kindness that I want us to have as people. I'm going to tell a really quick story, and I'm tossing to Cole. I was 22 years old, newly out of college, and this is in my book. If you buy it, you'll know more. Left Rochester, New York with my boyfriend type human, and driving across the QEW to go to a wedding. And I don't know what happened. Like, the front left tire of the car blew out, and we crossed 4 highways on the Queen Elizabeth Way, and like in traffic, and the car spun around like this, like I don't know how many times. bounced on the roof, bounced on the tires, bounced on the roof, bounced on the tires. Okay? It was insanity. And we both walked away, right? Went to the emergency room. Mike had to stay. I call him another name in the book. Don't say Mike when you read it. He had to stay in the emergency room. I had no money. This is right out of college. In the olden days, we didn't have, ATM cards and stuff. I was broke, crying at the phone bank, getting ready to call our parents and say we didn't die, but we were hurt. This white lady was staring at me. I'm black, okay. This white lady was staring at me. So this white Canadian lady was staring at me. Room full of people. Nobody else was staring, but she's staring at me. And she walks toward me. Here she comes with her cute little bob. And what's the matter? When you're crying and someone asks you what's the matter, you cry harder. So I'm crying harder.
True story.
Right? And I'm like, all the things, everything I just told you, but through mucus and noise. And she goes, what can I do to help you? What? My car's totaled, and I don't have any money. She took me to a hotel and checked me in, and then took me to the drugstore to get the things you don't have when your car's totaled, and to Burger King or someplace to get food. Back to the hotel, checked me in, paid the bill, picked me up the next day, took me to the hospital to get them. I mean, really, the Good Samaritan story for real. Mm-hmm. That's rule-breaking kindness. So you see it and you know it and you have to just go like that. There's no reason. I'm like a Afro-wearing, glass in the hair, black chick, but she does not know. And she loved me in that moment, in the way that God, the love, expects us to love each other. Unbelievable. So I like describing things in the ways that are visceral, is what I'm trying to say. Glass in the hair with the blood and the girl saving me, raising me. Now this genius woman, if you don't read Black Liturgies on the interwebs, because people are beginning to copy you, the way Cole uses space, literally space,
right,
to show the words that are life-saving words. And in ways that you do have to stop the scroll, and you do have to pay attention, and you do slide the slide, and you finally find Cole. She may or may not attribute herself, but there she is, sort of sewing up the beauty of the Baldwin and the Morrison and the folks. I just think it's important for older people to say when young people are brilliant. And Cole's use of language is brilliance and evocative, and those sparse speaking mountains.
Thank you.
You're so welcome.
Well, you know, and if anyone here has read my first book, I wasn't very verbal as a child, and kind of grew into my voice in my late teens, early 20s, began to speak a bit more. And I think because I was so late, a little bit of my language was strange just by virtue of it being late. So I think part of my language choice is just, has always been strange. And part of it is very intentional. You know, I love a subversive word. My sentences, I want people to kind of pause over something and feel like I'm subverting some expectation. And I think as a writer, I don't find myself to be very bold in my day-to-day life, but the page is one place where I feel like I can subvert expectation in a way that draws attention. And I think that is the beauty of language, that you can, and the terror of it, you know, when it's overused and you can become so familiar with something that it begins to mean nothing at all. When you say the same word over and over again, and then it starts not to even sound like that word, you know, when you're a kid and you're like, what? I feel like that happens on some level with language in general, and the more we can complicate expectations around the language we choose, the better, the more it kind of shakes people out. It's why I don't really use language of hope that much, because that word is used so much. I don't even think we know what we're saying when we say hope, you know. And so can I choose a different word that might, you know, keep someone's attention for just a second longer, might make someone pause over it a second longer. I'm interested in that. I would tell my editor while I was writing, like, if I can't make this clear, I want it to be strange. Like, let the word be strange. You know, if I can't, if it's not exactly clear, please just, I want it to be weird. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
I only want about half of those battles.
A really good, I mean, it's a lot, I mean, just the writerliness of that, of just like to create that boundary for yourself, I mean, to protect that for yourself from whatever editors and publishers and folks, you know, want to contain or want to make it easier somehow.
Yeah. The publishers love clarity. They just want to sell books, you know. They have a job to do. So publishers love clarity to some degree, and I love the opposite. I want everything to be, to too much of an extent. I want everything to be weird. I want everything to make someone have to work, and I think that's an important task is to be able to trust the other person on the other side of the page. You know, it comes out of a desire to not handhold and to believe that the other person on the page is just as much capacity to kind of dream up a new way for speaking and kind of language than I do. So.
And to ask something of the reader, to trust them to do the work of, oh, I might have to do this more slowly.
Yes.
Right? But to be trusted as the recipient of that, to be handed something strange and to say, yeah, you can handle this is a space and a place.
I think Cole and I have a similar, we're from church, not church, doing theological visioning. Here's another world, I'm going to say, work. And your, if not clear, strange, weird, and I say stuff. So I'm kind of like maybe shocking, with like candid shock. Shockingly candid, which I didn't used to be when I was little. Things bad happened. But I think I got liberated, Cole, around how truthful could I be. So it isn't necessarily your truth, but I'm as truthful as I can be, your truth, as truthful as I can be, saying let's have a project of being love shacks who are truthful. So how truthful can we be with ourselves? And I think if we're honest with each other, it's kind of going to create a different world. So just kind of a slightly different strategy, but a strategy of like, what did you just say? I meant that. I really did. So what do you say? Right. What's your work around that as well?
So I wonder too how that is fed in each of you. Like, where do you find strange gifts? Where are you fed encouragement to be a truth teller? Where do you see that, or where do you go looking for it? Where does it? What feeds you each?
Yeah. Well, in terms of the strange, queer people, of course, subverting all of our expectations and finding a way to be close enough to themselves to, know their own names and call themselves by their own names. I think I find a lot of hope and freedom in that. But poetry, which I know that you both love poetry as well, but I think there's something about a poem that is not as interested in clarity, it's not as interested in definition, you know.
That's the point.
Right, and I find that really, I think I'm looking for that in the poem of, they're not trying to teach me, they're not trying to tell me what to think, it's fragments, and it's a lot of images, and I find a lot of freedom in the fragments and in the conveyance of what it means to be human, as opposed to, I need you to think this way about being human. Yeah.
I think that's true, Colin. I would say poetry feels true to me too. Like there's truth there in the fragments, and it's almost like a hunt, like a hunt a search for the truth that's in the fragments or in the images that really delights me. I find that to be really helpful. And I think music is just like a whole vocabulary, you know? Jazz is vocabulary, classical, the ballads that I grew up on, you know, Motown. Something about the person who can sit down and write words and then put music to it feels really like an invitation to find the truth. And I want to second Cole's queer people. Like, I'm straight, but I do think I'm the queerest straight Black woman of my age in America. But to know trans people's journey, to know queer people's joy, I think we have something to learn from our queer siblings about, protesting weird impingements or something that I think is a gift.
Yeah, yeah. I wonder, as if I could try to put you each on the spot just a little bit. Do you have a question for each other? I know that you know each other. I know that you cross paths, but I also know that you're not together in the same space. I wonder if you have a question for each other.
Yes.
Oh, ready.
I can ask a question. I can't always answer them, but I can definitely ask a question. So you were talking about truth and kind of the importance and kind of resurrecting that and finding that. I'm curious, how do you discern how much truth to give away and what to hold close? Because, you know, yes, as writers, we're pursuing that. I want to be as honest as I can. I think I am most honest on the page, way more honest than face to face with you now. But I'm trying to walk a line for myself. You know, there's that Imani Perry, who's a historian, a brilliant historian. She says, "You never tell all the secrets when you're trying to get free." Mm-hmm. And I always think about that and that tension as a writer of how much do you give and how much do you withhold? How do you figure that out for yourself, or what does that discernment look like? How much truth?
It's an excellent question. I teach preaching sometimes, and I will say, the pulpit is not your support group, or, you know, it's not, you know, it's not like, I'm just going to show you everything I have. I talk about being the truest true that is appropriate to be. And I think that's what you're asking is, how do you know? I will say that I think it's situational. If I'm with my girlfriends having pound cake and champagne, or I'm with my husband, like, let's get it out, you know, my therapist. But I think I'm going to say the word authentic is what is my guide. Can I authentically tell this story or make this point, writing or illustrate the sermon? Can I authentically do that and keep some secrets on the way to freedom? Yes. Mm-hmm. It's not everything. So even in my book where there's the expression pour tea, spill tea. Yeah. I spill tea in my book. I'm like, girl, I'm the worst with the metaphors.
Generational learning happening right here.
Like, what is that thing that they say? Pour tea, spill. What is it? Spill tea. Spill the tea. Spill tea. I spilled some tea, but I also protected some folks intentionally because it's not their book, and but it's true, right? So I think it's something like some ethic, like don't hurt anybody with your truth if you don't need to. Don't tell their truth while you're telling your truth. If you don't have to, get permission. And be authentic all the time, every day, and know that there are aspects of yourself that deserve to be your own secrets, even as you're being real. Does that answer that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pour tea. Help me with that.
Do you have a question for Cole?
I do. I do, and why liturgy? I mean, you saved us during COVID, but there are other formats. What drew you to liturgy as a way to heal?
Well, since I encountered liturgy, since I encountered the Book of Common Prayer, I found it so beautiful and so restful. There's just something about being able to enter a space or enter the words and not so much is demanded of you. You know, you don't have to be able to articulate things perfectly yourself, and you can kind of enter this sacred theater.
Yeah.
And I have been on the receiving end of that, in theater in the best of terms, not in the kind of pejorative sense of, I've been on the receiving end of that, where I've been so exhausted and I've given so much and received so little and lost kind of the energy to connect with the divine, to even attempt to speak to God. And I think when I started Black Liturgies, the digital project, the summer of 2020, almost the reverse happened, where I felt ready to kind of to step in and say, if there's anything that I can offer right now, it would be my words. And if there's one component of my own humanity that I'm far from right now, it's the spiritual dimension. And so I think the spiritual kind of words that I had a framework for was liturgy. I mean, I think there's also some, I'm biased, but I think I could speak about liturgy for a while. There's something really mysterious that happens when you are kind of forced to stay in the words together as a collective. And words that might not even have been written for you, they might not immediately resonate with you, you might not even understand them, but to kind of commit yourself to staying in the room, I think, forms us in terms of solidarity. So when you go to the summer of 2020 and the loneliness we were feeling, our summer in lockdown, and the terror we were feeling as the world at least pretended to contend with, global anti-Blackness. I think the things that we were looking for, the things that I were looking for, could be found in liturgy: connection, rest, a kind of collective voice, not a resistance of isolation, and a form of solidarity, this dance of centering and recentering and decentering when needed. So I find all of that beautiful.
I do too. That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So I'm going to pause and know that we're going to hear some questions from some other folks. So you guys, I got to ask some questions. Y'all got names, so it's going to be their turn soon. As a moment to give us a transition point, I do want to I was going to say thank you again in a few minutes, but I want to say thank you to you both for this conversation, and to let folks know that you can hear Jacqui's sermon from noon, which you're going to want to go find, because it's powerful and empowering. And you can come back tomorrow and hear Cole in this space at noon. So there's more opportunities to hear from both of them, and we're grateful for that. So we'll take just say a little bit of that. And then we'll have some questions from y'all who are here on a Wednesday night to witness the conversation, but also participate in the conversation. And Robin is going